In this video, I'll be checking out the Exploter ApplePie Touch. This is a very small AI box with a built-in 2.1 inch HD touchpad display. Runs Android 13 operating system, up to 8 GB of RAM and up to 128 GB of onboard storage. Has dual Wi-Fi support, 4G SIM card support, as well as HDMI output support. So for a tiny little device, there's a lot to like here. So let's open this box up and see what comes inside. Okay, so here's what you get inside the box. You get a small paper instruction manual. You get the ApplePie Touch AI box itself. There's a USB-C to USB-A power lead to power the adapter, and you also get a USB-A to USB-C adapter for more modern CarPlay ports. And with this HDMI output port, you've also got a mini HDMI to full-size HDMI adapter. And finally, you get a SIM card pin removal tool to insert your SIM card and TF card into the AI box itself. Okay, so looking over the AI box itself, I must be honest, the marketing does make this appear a lot smaller than actually what it is in real life. It is quite a big AI box, but you do have a big touchscreen display as well on top. So up on top, you've got black casing and a little bit of chrome on the inner side, and that's surrounding the 2.1 inch touch display. Now this touch display can display things like time and date, currently playing music, and as it's a touchpad, it also acts as like a mouse or a control should your car not have that facility, such as a BMW or an Audi, where you have to use a dial instead. Around the edges are a few I/O ports. We've got the USB-C port to power the adapter, then you've got a SIM card tray, which will use the device tool to open up, and then you've got the SIM card tray and TF card slot to expand the storage. And then around the other side, we've got our HDMI output port, which is covered with a rubber bung cover. And if you don't have a mini to mini or whatever device you're planning on connecting this to, such as a rear headrest display, for example, you can plug this in to the back there and connect it to a full-size HDMI cable as well. On the bottom there, we've got some passive cooling, a grill to keep the internal chipset cool. But let's get this connected to a CarPlay display quickly, so we can actually load on our media accounts before we jump in the car. So after powering up, we've got the main menu interface on the CarPlay display here. And now we can show you with it powered what the actual display looks like. It's not super vivid. I don't know if you can change the brightness of it yet, but it's fairly visible. You don't want it to be too bright in the car at night time, for example. It's showing a time at the moment, a clock. And if you scroll vertically, you can go through so many different styles of clock. Probably just under around about 10 there. Let's try swiping sideways. You've got a compass, which you can change between two. And then you've got media playback. There's no vertical scroll there, but you've got some interactions there between back, forward and play. And then swiping one more time, we've got settings, and then we've got touchpad, and then that's it. So if we go the far left, that's it on there as well. So that's the general functionality of this screen. So you've got touch input for the screen itself and a few additional value adds. Now, there's nothing on the back here, but they did supply me, in terms of mounting it, but they did supply me this little, what they call is a phone holder. That goes on the dashboard, that goes on the back of the mount, and then basically that will attach itself onto the mount itself, should you want to position that particularly in the car interior. If you don't plan on using the touch interface, then I'd say you could probably just tuck this away and control the remaining parts of the AI box from the touchscreen display. But if you don't have touchscreen, you might want to mount this a little bit more prominent on your car interior. We'll go over these apps actually in the car, and we'll fill these up with our accounts as well, so we don't have to worry about logging in. And then we'll also add a few more apps as well to test out. So I'll see you in the car, and we'll go over the ApplePie Touch in a little bit more detail then. So I'll see you there. Right, so we're in the Golf, and we've got our ApplePie Touch all mounted onto the side of the dash here, so you can see the screen, what it's doing, whilst I'm using it on the main screen. We're going to connect it up, see how quickly the boot time is, and then I'll show you the main menu. We're going to connect it up now. Okay, and now we're into the main menu interface. It seems to go to the far left screen for some reason, rather than the home screen. So the main screen it should be landing on is here. And you've got the time, obviously. We can change that if we wanted to something else. I don't think this actually gets saved because I've connected this multiple times and it always seems to rest on the very first one. It doesn't seem to save the state that you're selecting, so that's a little bit of an issue. and it feels like they're not really consistent. It'd be nice if the background stayed the same whenever you choose a different background, for example. They should mirror across to be the consistency a little bit more. Otherwise, this is the main menu. We've got the core system, RAM, ROM, how many GPS connections we've got, and the amount of RAM that's being currently used through apps. We can clean that up and it will clear that. You got a shortcut of 6 icons which we can tap and connect to the various applications that you want to get quick access to. It's going to connect up our favorite test apps as well as Google Play Store, and also go into settings as well. 2 of the last used apps will start to appear here. We've got access to the Google Assistant. Good morning.
Hello, CarPlay.
Okay, and that's working okay with the microphone. Second screen, or the main screen, is a tiled interface. Now we've got 3 different layouts here that I'll show you in a second. But if you swipe across, you get access to all the other applications that are actually installed. I have now added a few more. You can tap here, and if you're not using that service, you can have maps in there instead. But that's just a tile, it's not really a navigational tile. And again, you can set these to whatever, something else that you might use more often. You can't change this tile here, unfortunately. Tapping here, it doesn't do anything, but you can tap up here for the control center for quick access to SIM card Wi-Fi, changing the wallpaper, the Bluetooth connection that's connected. That will take you to the ApplePie settings. And then we've got 3 different menu layouts. Layout 1 is just 2 tiles that can't be configured. This actually works, so you don't have to tap through to see it working. That now playing content tile will only get populated with Bluetooth and any media that you're playing locally. So that's quite redundant for me personally. So that's those 2. And then layout 3 is a bigger tile. So again, maps, and you've got 2 smaller shortcuts and then the media tile again. So I can see why they've gone with layout 2 as the default, because it's the more sort of jazzy screen, and you can actually change the 4 shortcuts here to something else if you wanted to, and that's another way to quickly get access to the maps. Resolution is totally fine, looks really good. We can quickly go in here and just go into the settings, and you've got HDMI special mode, and I have tried out the HDMI. That works totally fine. Actually really good sync to audio. We'll test that on my system though, and that might be a different story, but on the screen, HDMI screen itself, the audio does pass through as well, and the delay is really good. So if you are connecting it to a rear display headrest, for example, then actually that will work quite well. Widget is pretty good. We can put like YouTube. I believe that might change the widget being used on, say, layout 1. So if that shows as YouTube now, yeah, it does. So you can change that tile to whatever you want, different app, but we're just going to be going with layout 2. It's a bit nicer. And then we've got basically all the pre-installed apps. You've got the Google Suite, so everything works really nice. This is using a Qualcomm 6125 chipset. So it's one of the, what I think is like the base they should be really. They should be much beefier than this, but you can see here it is rapidly reactive, and that's really nice. You can see there that we've got the floating button of doom, which could be redundant if you don't mind using that display, because basically you could probably turn this off and you've got the compass, we've got the now playing settings screen, and then we've got this. And what you could do, you can select this, and now you've got a back button up here, which is the main reason why you'd want to use this setup, as well as multitasking. But that could basically rule out the need to have that floating button if you really don't like it and you don't mind using that display instead. So we've checked out maps. Let's just go into YouTube and see the sync quality. It does it in a kind of mobile format, so it's not that well suited. It's not got the high DPI mode here. It's showing it in big massive tiles, like as if like you're viewing it in mobile. But let's just check out some of the audio sync tests. So I think that's roughly around the 400 mark. But let's see how that performs on actual video. Wireless CarPlay dongles have slowly progressed over the years, and we are now seeing makers switch their focus towards the 2-in-1 wireless CarPlay adapters, which offer the ability to also pair with Android Auto devices too. So yeah, so that's slightly behind. It is quite obvious in the delay, and quite a common trait on this particular setup. We'll jump over to Netflix. Another thing about this floating button, it doesn't seem to, if you put it anywhere in this section here, it always snaps back to roughly about halfway. You can't place it anywhere in this right hand quarter, but you can here. So that seems to be a little bit of a bug as well. So we'll go into our account, and it performs nicely. It scrolls really well, and let's just try some video.
The overtake on Valtteri created this spark and this tension between the two of us.
That was committed, it was brave, it was brilliant!
I thought, you know.
Okay, that sounds good, but it is slightly off in its sync, but better than YouTube, as it always is with Netflix versus YouTube. Sounds great, stereo, looks really nice as well, and interaction is not that laggy on the 6125 chipset. So I'm just generally happy with that. It's good for casual watching as it is on YouTube. So bear that in mind. That 6125 chipset does make navigation quite nicely rapid compared to some lower end CPUs that are out there. Let's check out some Spotify. That loads in there relatively nicely.
Well, here we are, back in the hot, muggy streets of New York.
So that all sounds good. Goes in relatively quickly. You also got wheel controls. You can go backwards and forwards. And the wheel control voice button triggers Google as well. And so that's good, plays those just fine. So not too bad on Spotify. You've got updates over the air, which is good, APK managers as well as APK Pure, so you can get some apps that aren't available on the Google Play Store that says that they're not available for the device. I've loaded in a few other games. I would say it's not very good at Call of Duty level of gaming. The CPU, the Adreno 610, is not really good for that. Casual 2D and lightweight 3D seems to work okay. It does tackle it okay. And this is quite a lightweight 3D game, which seems to do the trick okay. It's not stuttering at all on its quality, and it is fairly playable. So anything like this will work just fine. But anything that's a little bit more taxing, then you want to be a bit more careful with that. Obviously, you've got HBO, Hulu, Disney Plus if you've got those accounts. I've done a couple of benchmarks and I'll put that up ahead, how this performs. It's probably on the high end because it is 6125, but because they've given me the 4GB version, it does suffer a little bit compared to the 8GB versions of this chipset. And you can see the benchmark scores as well. They seem to do not a bad way. You've got TF card slots, so you can use onboard audio. And just to show you on the navigation, you can start to use these to go up and around, and you can execute. So for example, we can go into the APK manager, go down twice to exit, and then we got home, which is going to take us home, and then you've got the back button as well. You can use the keypad to sort of control a mouse type. You see that there just then. You can control it with the mouse, which is quite frustrating because it's quite slow. It's not one-to-one, unfortunately. But it's nice to have that option up there. But as for CarPlay and Android Auto, it uses the app X-Link. We can go into the Bluetooth settings. ApplePie shows up at the bottom here. Pair. And then we're into wireless Apple CarPlay. And then from here we can basically navigate around. We'll just put that there because it's out the way. And the performance is just like most AI boxes really. It's not going to be as good as the dedicated wireless adapters are because it's going through software. But it's good enough if you want to cut the cable and use Apple CarPlay wirelessly. Let's try some audio quickly. So quite a lengthy delay between audio switching, and that's the trait of the bandwidth and the Wi-Fi specs that they've given this adapter, and I'll put that down below what that is. It's quite low end, so it's going to have that kind of trait. But you've got wheel controls through wireless CarPlay. That's all good. You can hold down for Google Assistant, but you should be able to fire Siri. No, you can't, but you can do Hey Siri, send an audio message to test.
Hi, this is Anthony from CarPlayLife.com, and this is an audio message using the ApplePie Touch, and this is an audio test.
Okay, personally, that's a little bit low quality compared to some other AI boxes that I've listened to. It feels like there's a bit of a high gain, and it is manipulating the audio channel a little bit compared to using CarPlay natively. So something is going on there that's reducing that quality, unfortunately. Let's try a test call. Hello? 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 So quite a little bit of a delay there on the calling, unfortunately. That might affect calling a little bit, so bear that in mind if you want to use this for calling. But that's CarPlay in a nutshell. Let's try out Android Auto. On our Android phone, we're going to go into the Bluetooth, connect to ApplePie. Now we're into Android Auto pretty rapidly, which is nice to see. There is a slight squashingness in the feed, not as higher quality as it is if you were to plug it in. So there is some compression going on there. It's not fully sharp, but let's go into the performance. It's not solid as some of the adapters that are out there, but that's kind of what you get when you're doing this through software. Kind of mishit on the touches there. Doesn't support pinch and zoom through software, so that's a bit of a detriment there, but that's what it's like in most AI boxes. Let's try out some audio. Yeah, so we're in about 2 seconds delay there. Slightly better than CarPlay, but Android Auto is always a little bit ahead of CarPlay in terms of its input to delay. The wheel controls obviously work through Android Auto as well, and Google will still pass through on the Android OS layer rather than through Android Auto. You might be able to configure that, but some do it off the bat and work just fine, but for some reason it's not doing it on this particular adapter. As for what this displays during Android Auto, let's try. Yeah, that's coming up here okay, even through Android Auto. And you can interact with the display as well. And you can pause it, start and stop as well. This doesn't feel like it's actually working because North is basically behind me. I don't know if you need to configure that or if this is just for show, but yeah, that's a little bit worrying if that's meant to work. So that's Android Auto. Let's just do a quick audio test to see if that's any different. Hello? 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 Yeah, a little bit quicker than CarPlay, but it's still a little bit of a delay compared to some that are much more rapid. So that's Android Auto. And that is the connection wirelessly to Android Auto and CarPlay through the ApplePie Touch. So the ApplePie Touch currently retails for $180 from the Exploter store directly. And I'll put the links down below so you can learn more about its adapter, support the channel, and buy yourself one. Generally, I feel it's an adapter that is trying something a little bit different with the touch interface. But personally, I can't see myself actually using it other than someone that hasn't got a touch input interface display. And even if you didn't, I think the touch input is quite limiting, a little bit frustrating compared to pairing it with something like a Bluetooth wand or a controller instead. As for its performance, it is middle to low pegging in terms of not only the games that you can play, but also the delay in video, the quality in wireless Apple CarPlay, as well as Android Auto. There are lacking there as well in those areas. It's nice that they've actually put a little effort in the UI to make it a little bit nicer, but I would say it's a nice token attempt, but I think it could be a little bit more improved as well. You do have all the apps all pre-installed for you, but I did have to download a lot of updates for those particular apps. Gaming is very limited due to its CPU. You will not be gaming on this with any high intensity games. And if you are, maybe consider their Rocket instead. That's got a lot more power behind it. So if you are lightweight gaming, this might suit you okay for that. But personally, performance wise and the cost wise, If you're looking at adapters that are in the similar price range, if you can do away with the display and it's not that important to you, I would probably consider their ApplePie 6225 chipset or the AI996E adapter that I've also reviewed on this channel, and you can check that up there. It's the same price, performs a little bit better because it's the 6225 chipset, which has a slightly improved benchmarking generally, and with an 8GB RAM version it's really good at flight a little bit better as well. So if you can do away from the screen, and I don't think really this is that important, if I'm honest, I think hopefully not everyone starts to go down this road, because I don't think it's necessary, but it's nice that they've attempted this. And we've seen the CarPlay clip from Autocast, and that has very similar traits, and it's okay if you're going to use that kind of thing, but turn it into a vent mount or something and make it actually more useful rather than just display what you're already seeing on the display. Other than the touch input, if you're lacking that in your own car, I don't really see there's an actual need for a second screen. And if anything, take the screen away and sell it for a little bit cheaper, more competitively, might be what I would probably recommend. Alright, thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful. If it has, give us a thumbs up and let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions about the ApplePie Touch, and I'll do my best to answer them. You can support the channel by sending us a super thanks on YouTube, or buy me a coffee. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.